Good day, viewers. Welcome back to the Preaching Humanist with David Oliverio. That is I. Voltaire, one of my favorite philosophers of all time, 18th century French philosopher of the Enlightenment, said, "I wholly disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it and to believe it." Today I want to discuss breaking that confirmation bias bubble. We all tend to have it, and I'm guilty of it as well. It's not only on the right, but it's also on the left. It's not only in believers, but also those of us that are on the secular side. So let's talk about breaking out of that confirmation bias bubble. Confirmation bias is simply a tendency to search for or interpret something that already confirms one's preconceived notions and ideas and beliefs. In other words, it's comfortable to be around people that believe like you. And we all do this. We're all guilty of it. I think it's important for us to not cut out dissenters, but to listen and to come to agreement in certain areas and to hear other people. So let me give you an example on both sides. Confirmation bias bubble. I've had a client, this older lady, a few years older than me, for probably 4 or 5 years. Very sweet lady. She is definitely a conservative right person. When it comes to political right and religious right, very much. She knows I'm an atheist. We become good friends for 4 years in her home, personal training in her home. She made a comment to me about gun laws. Now, we normally don't discuss politics, nor do we discuss religion. We both know better. We're both friends. And plus, it's my business and she pays me. But she does know I'm an atheist. So finally, she opened up to me and asked me. She said, "David, those people on the left, I'm afraid that they want to come and confiscate all of our guns, those of us that are more Republican, right, and very Christian." So I had to explain to her that these stickers on several vehicles I see around town, "Come and take it," this idea they get that those of us that tend to be more on the left, I'm not extreme left, but I'm on the left, wanted to come and take away their guns. So this idea she had came from her little isolated confirmation bias bubble she gets from her church and from her political party and Fox News, because she told me that. So I had to explain to her, no, we want rights for everybody. We want you to be able to have your guns if you want to hunt. I've known those good old boy Bubbas, I told her, for years. They were the gun, God, and glory type guy on the far right, but they were good guys. And they used to tell me, "David, I'm afraid you guys on the left want to take away my rights to go hunting, deer, and so forth." I said, "No, we don't want to do that. Where did you get that idea?" So this confirmation bias thing, we always search for people and ideas that will confirm already what we believe. I think we need to give other people respect to explain. Now, I had to explain to my client that what she was believing, what she heard, was completely wrong. She also thought and told me that she believed that all people on the left were extreme left liberals, not motivated by science. We believed in flat earth, conspiracy theories, and so forth. I had to explain to her, no, we don't. Also, she said, "David, I always thought that the humanist people, the secular people, wanted to take away my right to believe in God." And again, I had to explain to her, no, we don't. I don't. And most of us do not want to take your rights to believe what you want to. I will defend your right to believe what you want. And you can believe in God. That's fine. We're not taking away your rights. Last couple weeks ago, at Georgetown, Texas, I and one of my friends, I had my one of my secular humanist signs up, and he was carrying the Keep Church and State Separate sign. And this woman about my age in her 60s came by and read the signs, gave me the typical disgruntled look, like, oh. She stopped, she turned around, she came back, pointed her finger in my face and said, "I love the Lord Jesus Christ, and you can't take that right away from me. Stop trying to take away my belief." And I tried to explain to her, where did you get this idea? I am not trying to take away your right to believe in whatever you want. Just don't hurt anybody else. So some of these people don't understand. So it was very important for my client to have someone like me. And I told her, I said, "Listen, you have never, ever had someone like me come into your little bubble, have you? She goes, no. Have you ever known an atheist and become a friend with an atheist or a secular humanist or a more liberal person? She said, no. I said, did you learn something today? And she looked up. She goes, I have. I've learned a lot. And I explained to her about our confirmation bias bubble. So it does go both ways. Now, let me use myself as an example. I'm going to pick up myself because I'm an open book. I'm not hiding anything. I make mistakes too. I tend to lean toward that confirmation bias because it makes you feel good. You don't want to have that dissent from someone of a different worldview. Well, I like to read. Most people that know me know I'm a bookworm. I just love to read book after book after book. Been doing it for 30 years. I had to retrain my brain after leaving magical thinking and learn about reality, science, and philosophy. So I picked up a book entitled Reading the Bible as History, written by a historian. Now, as soon as I picked up that book, I went, the Bible is history. Oh my gosh, because I've always been that type of guy years ago, like smashing the Bible and Christianity, yeah? Thinking, oh, it's all a bunch of garbage. Well, I gave it a chance. I thought to myself, hold on, here comes some of that confirmation bias in me. I'm just going to stick to my atheist and science and philosophy books. Forget this crap. Well, I started reading it, and I thought to myself, give this thing a chance. As far as supernatural embellished claims, been there, done that. But as far as some of the other things, are there some facts and truth in the Bible? Or am I just exercising too much confirmation bias in my bubble? So I began to read the book by this historian. And here's some things that I came to understand. We all know the story in the Bible about the escaped Israelites when they fled Egypt, right? We've always been told, and from the Bible, and I used to preach it years ago as a young preacher in the 70s and 80s, that there was a whole nation of Israelites. And God delivered them, and all these supernatural claims, right, of deliverance. Now, is that all wrong? Well, if you read what historians say, actually, there's a little bit of truth to that, a lot of embellishment, that there's some fact. Now, looking at Egyptian hieroglyphics back about 3,000 to 5,000 years ago, you will see that the hieroglyphics show some lighter-skinned people that were from the northeastern sections of Egypt, which we would call the Mesopotamia area, the Tigris-Euphrates River, the Fertile Crescent, if you know your history and geography. There may have been a few hundred or a few thousand, not many, escaped slaves. Everybody had slaves back then, right? So the few escaped slaves may have left Egypt and gone back across the Red Sea when it was about that shallow because of the flood. We know that. So these are embellished stories. Now, here's another good one I like. I've always read in the Bible. Back when I used to preach it, God dropped down angel food as the Israelites were wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. God fed them supernaturally with manna, angel food from heaven, and quail dropped down from heaven. So I began to read the book. Actually, there is some truth to that with lots of embellishment. Now, the thing about manna, history and science can tell you what's going on there. There's a particular tree in that particular region of the Mideast. And there's an insect that bores holes into those trees, a nocturnal insect, feeding on the sap of that tree. During the night, after that insect bores a hole into the bark, the sap will drip down on the ground from above, right? And by the morning, it hardens into a nice, sweet, little, decadent meal. It looked like angel food, a little biscuit. And the people still today can gather up this, what they call angel food, from under these particular trees. There we have the embellished story. So I'll open up my mind, begin to read. Hey, this is not so bad after all. There's a little bit of truth there. How about another one, the quail? I love that story. We used to preach from the Bible that God dropped down quail from heaven to feed the Israelites. Now, instead of, like I wanted to do, just throw this book aside and say the Bible has no history. It's just ridiculous. These people are crazy. Well, let's give it a chance. So I read it, found out that the quail, all it is, are migratory birds, just like we have here in Texas. I love nature. I'm kind of a naturalist, or an amateur naturalist. We like to go out and hike and camp and read about wildlife. I like to do that. And I know there's migratory routes here in North America. We have the central fly zone, the eastern and the western and the mountain fly zones, right, where the migratory birds come across the Gulf of Mexico, and they call it the drop zone, down to central part of the coast, south of Houston, north of Corpus Christi, yada, yada, right? So as these birds are coming back north, they're exhausted. They've been flying across the Gulf of Mexico and also the Mediterranean, the Red Sea, over where we're talking about, the Fertile Crescent, Mesopotamia area, where these Bible stories come from. So we know birds here fly across, they drop down because they're exhausted. They drop down and begin to look for things to eat, and they rest. Same thing with the quail over in Israel and Egypt and Iraq and so forth. The migratory birds go across the sea, the Red Sea, the Mediterranean and so forth. They drop down, and to this day, you can go pick up quail because they're exhausted. They're fluttering around looking for food. These are embellished stories where the Bible writers put in all that supernatural stuff. That is all very testable. I think we know about that. So my point today is, are we in a confirmation bias bubble on the left? Are we who identify as secular humanists, atheists, and agnostics just as bad as the conservative right, political right, and the Christian right? Well, we have the problem with that too. Let's be careful not to get into that confirmation bias bubble all the time. Let's get out of it. Let's talk to people. And as I do on the weekends, instead of arguing with Christians all the time, I try to let them see, I, as a secular humanist and an atheist, I have the same shared values you do. We have a lot more in common than you know. I'll be discussing this on a future episode. So let's get out of our bubble and let's talk to people, and let's show them what it's really like to be a secular humanist. And let's listen to them, and if we have answers for them, which we do, let's do it with patience, compassion, and kindness. So thank you for watching The Preaching Humanist. Have a wonderful day.